There's a lie the loud world sells you that answers come from noise. They don't. The moments that change a life, the solution, the plan, the monstrous idea, arrive in the small, empty places no one notices. That silence is not absence. It is incubation. It is weather for the mind. Picture Archimedes in a bath. He wasn't trying to make history. He was alone with a problem, with only his thinking and the world's small comforts. Then, suddenly, an insight. He rose, naked and laughing in the street, because a shadow of water told him what his logic could not. The myth here is not the comic image. The myth is the principle. The brain needs quiet to rearrange itself. It is in the pause that patterns line up. Newton didn't invent gravity at a party. He sat under a tree, bored enough to watch an apple fall and bored enough to make a new grammar out of what he saw. The moment wasn't mystical. It was slow. It was patient. It was the mind permitted to wander its territory until a path revealed itself. Call it incubation, call it the default mode, call it whatever science will later give a neat term for. The truth for the builder and for the fighter is this: the loud hours make you busy, the quiet ones make you wise. Noise fragments attention. Silence compounds it. This is where most people trip. They fear nothingness. They panic at a blank page and call it failure. They reach immediately for a distraction, a feed, a meeting, a surface fix, because busy feels like control. But busy is a mirage. It creates the illusion of progress while the deep work of creation waits, rotting in the dark because we won't sit with the discomfort of not knowing. Greatness trades comfort for waiting rooms. It trains its attention to sit with a question until the question becomes a lever. Edison didn't pray for lightning. He made 1,000 small hypotheses and tested them because he understood that answers are artifacts of persistence. He made repetition his engine, and out of that repetition came method. The genius of incubation is not luck. It is patient, methodical pressure. What happens in those empty rooms is not always pleasant. The mind shows you the parts that are broken. It reveals your mistakes. It forces you to taste failure without applause. But that's the curriculum of mastery. If you cannot be alone with what you don't know, you will never learn what you need to know. The brain, unpressured by constant reaction, reconfigures. This world rewards visible hustle. Algorithms reward noise. So it's tempting to show your work, to document the climb before the summit. But there is power in not showing the lean months. There is strategy in holding the rehearsal until the curtain falls. The successes that shock the market are rarely overnight. They're the last frame of a film no one watched until the premiere. Think of the artist who sits with a blank canvas for hours. Think of the engineer who stares at a stubborn problem and allows his mind to stitch fragments together. Think of the writer who walks long streets and lets sentences form in the brain while the body moves. These are not accidents. They are practice.
Limits are not punishment. Limits are tools. People think freedom means endless choice. They think more options equal more possibility. That's the myth that eats your time. Real makers do the opposite. They cut the list, draw the line, and force genius to prove itself inside a small box. The smaller the box, the sharper the work becomes. Look at Jiro Ono. No myth, no hype, just a 10-seat counter and the same knife for decades. He doesn't have infinite ingredients. He has rice, fish, water, and a ritual. That tiny field of repetition forced him to find perfection in the smallest margin. When you tighten the frame, every mistake matters more. When every mistake matters, you stop floating, you start refining. Constraint becomes a crucible. It doesn't limit possibility, it focuses force. This is the trick the market hides from you. When you have everything, you don't decide, you stall. Choice becomes paralysis. When you have very little, you must choose. And good choices are the raw material of mastery. Constraints teach brutal clarity. They compress time and force decisions. You learn faster because you have to. You iterate faster because you must. You stop polishing vague hope and start shipping something that works. That's how ideas stop being dreams and start being products, songs, books, moves. Here's the cold math. Pressure produces architecture. A month with no limits produces noise. 1 week under a tight rule produces shape. The difference is not talent, it's friction. The right friction turns soft will into a tool. Don't mistake scarcity for virtue. The point is not to suffer. The point is to choose your battlefield. A smart constraint is chosen, not imposed. I have no money is despair. When you accept a boundary, you also claim a scalpel. You cut out excuses. You make decisions faster. You force your constraints to show the flaws in your idea, not the flaws in your courage. That's a kind of mercy, painful but honest. And constraints reveal hidden doors. With fewer colors on the palette, you see texture. With fewer features to ship, you find the one that matters. With a single counter and the same rice, Jiro found depth that a buffet never reveals. When your field narrows, your sensitivity sharpens. The small things you ignored suddenly hold the whole thing up. This is not abstract, it's tactical. Take any project you've been procrastinating on. Ask one question: what is the smallest possible arena where this idea would still prove itself? Not the best case, not the dream version, the bare bones. Then build that, finish that, show it. The rest is noise you don't need. There's courage in choosing a limit. It's easier to imagine doing everything than to commit to one hard rule. But commitment is what separates talkers from builders. Talkers dream in wide skies. Builders dig in small plots and harvest like men who expect winter.
There's a private law no one hands out at graduation. Repetition is not busy work. Repetition is the machine that makes you inevitable. Take Gregor Mendel, the monk in a small garden surrounded by peas. He didn't discover genetics in a single flash. He planted, he counted, he recorded again and again, each season folding data into patterns no one else had the patience to see. His work looked small. It read small. Pea pods, numbers, notebooks. But those tiny repeated acts rewired understanding. The point isn't the peas. The point is what steady, precise repetition does to a mind over time. Or watch a gymnast like Simone Biles in the early morning, the endless runs on the floor, the same twist broken into pieces, the landing practiced until the body remembers the correct acid drop of breath. When the crowd screams and the judges blink, she doesn't think. Her body answers. That answer is a long, private ledger of repetitions. This is not do the same thing forever. It is relentless refinement. The first repetition is clumsy. The 100th is practiced. The 1000th is weaponized. The brain is a landscape. Repetition carves trails there. Those trails deepen and become roads. One day, under fire, you travel those roads automatically. That saves you from panic. That makes you fast. That makes you dangerous. Engineers call it habit. Teachers call it practice. Neuroscience calls it plasticity. You can call it whatever helps you sit still for the next 2 hours. The label doesn't matter. The effect does. Look at the composer who rehearses one bar until the fingers stop missing the note. Or the surgeon who practices a cut on plastic until the motion is exact. They say our success is not mystery. It is rehearsal. It is mechanical memory. This process is not glamorous, and that's the point. Glamour is breathless and loud. The multiplier is patient and silent. It compounds like interest. 10 minutes a day becomes 10 hours a week. 10 weeks a year, 10 years a lifetime. You will not feel the change week to week. You will notice it when you stand in front of the thing that breaks everyone else. Repetition must be precise. Mindless repetition is a lie. It buys you nothing. The trick is not doing more. It's doing better. 100 sloppy runs do less than 10 exact ones. The edge is in the correction. Fail, note, fix, repeat. The repetition that owns you is the repetition you record and improve. The nervous system wants clarity. Give it clarity, and it will reward you with instinct. There's also a quiet cruelty in this law. The same repetition that makes the master will also dull the amateur. The field distinguishes the careful from the casual. That's how markets and arenas separate winners from hopefuls. You either build the pathway or you don't. There is no third option. You don't need an airy doctrine to start. You need an honest plan. Pick one motion, one sequence, one experiment. Break it down into the smallest viable unit. Repeat it until the slip is gone. Measure the error. Fix the error. Repeat. This isn't a motivational slogan. It's a method. It is the bread and the knife. This is the hardest truth. Skill is not a spark. Skill is a ledger. Start your ledger today. It will be boring now. It will be invisible now. That's the point. Hold the practice. Harden the repetition. Build the path in the dark. When the alarm comes, your body will answer as if it always intended to. And in that answer, you will be more than anyone ever expected.
Ritual doesn't feel heroic. Ritual looks boring. That is exactly why it works. You don't fall into incubation, you build it, you architect it. The people who call inspiration a lightning strike aren't malicious, they're mistaken. Lightning never hit a workshop that had no wires. The greats made wires, they made habits, they made small, repeatable scaffolds that turned empty time into production lines for ideas. Maya Angelou checked into hotel rooms to write, not for privacy alone, for the ritual. She created a place with rules, a simple room, a rented desk, a daily arrival time. The room told her the job had begun. After a few weeks, the room and the hour did the heavy lifting. When she sat, the work started. She didn't wait for a mood, she forced a condition. Haruki Murakami runs every morning and writes every afternoon. That repetition is not spiritual chic, it's a machine. Murakami's runs clear the surface. His writing period fills the quiet that follows. He turns down the world by moving through it and then locks the mind into one small, consistent window where sentences can be born. The ritual protects the fragile process and makes it reliable. Here's the crucial point. Rituals are simple, boring, and surgical. A ritual is not a list. It is a single sequence repeated until the mind learns the cue. Ritual removes negotiation. The most dangerous enemy to your work is the 10 seconds between I should start and I'll start later. That hesitation is a decision trap. Ritual closes the trap. It replaces an argument with a movement. You don't need motivation, you need a practice motion. This is not about martyrdom, it's about design. Design a 1-hour window that is yours. Design a place that signals work. Protect it like a secret. Tell no one the details. Don't post a picture of the ritual. Perform the ritual. Privacy is not shame, it's strategy. Keep the making sacred until the thing has teeth. Now, the experiment we will use, this is the single moment in the film where you prove the claim to yourself. It is short, brutal, and non-negotiable. The 7-day boredom window, do this exactly. For the next 7 days, pick one daily window of 20 minutes. Same time, same place. Early morning is best, before the world steals your attention. In that window, no phone, no music, no books, no tasks. Sit, watch the silence. If you have a page, put it closed. Your only job is to watch and listen. At minute 20, write 3 things. A, the first image or sentence that came without force. B, one small question that the silence exposed. C, one tiny next step you could take based on that question. 1 line each. No drama, no excuses. Do not skip. If you skip, you reset the 7 days. This is about building the ritual muscle, not proving cleverness. At the end of day 7, pick the clearest item and act on it for 1 hour. Ship something small based on what you found. That's it. Simple, sacred, merciless.
If silence is weaponized boredom, then distraction is a thief with keys to your house. You can be the hardest worker on earth, but if you hand your minutes to an app, you will be busy and broke of attention. The only way to protect the small hours you've carved out is to build a fortress, physical, digital, and social, around them. This is not advice, it's logistics. Great people don't rely on willpower alone. They build systems that make good choices, the default, and bad choices nearly impossible. Willpower is a match. Architecture is a dam. You want many dams. Top performers treat the phone like a dangerous tool, not a companion. They put it away. They put it in another room. They put it in a drawer. Others hand it to someone else. The act is simple. The consequence is enormous. 30 minutes of uninterrupted work today is a month of advantage over the person who yields to pings. Use calendar like a weapon. Block your work windows and make them visible only to you unless you choose otherwise. When your schedule shows deep work, do not disturb, in clean red, you teach other people how to treat you. Busy is not a badge, it's a boundary. Protect it with visible commitment. People respect calendars more than promises. Another hidden truth. Distraction is contagious. Meetings are contagions. Random chats are contagions. The most dangerous meeting is the one that could have been an email. Learn to kill meetings with a single question. What is the decision required? If there isn't one, you don't need that meeting. Schedule fewer meetings, make them surgical. Technology can also be turned into armor. Use automation, filters, canned replies, scheduled sends to reduce the friction of necessary communication. Use tools that summarize, that batch, that remove noise. Let software be your ally, not your jailer. You will be tested. The world will push at your walls. Your boss will ask a quick question. Your friend will text, "Where are you?" Your own brain will practice small rebellions. Just one look. Each test is tiny, but the victory compounds. Say no to the small thefts and you survive the big ones. There is one practical lie people tell themselves. I'm too important to be offline. No. If you are truly important, you will be more valuable when you protect the time that makes you sharp. Protecting your hours is not selfish. It is functional. It is the most useful thing you can do for the people who depend on you. This is also how you scale quiet across teams. Make silence a policy. Set blackout hours in the company calendar. Distraction is an enemy that never sleeps. Your job is to make sleeping impossible for it. When you do, the silence you stand in will become thick enough to carry the loudest strikes. The world will not notice the walls, it will only notice the results. That's the point.
James Dyson built 5,127 prototypes before his bag actually worked. That number isn't a punchline, it's a doctrine. Every dud was data. Every failure lit a new corner of the problem. Dyson didn't mourn his mistakes, he logged them, he measured them. He turned every no into a map that pulled him nearer. The result wasn't some mythic inspiration, it was a mountain of disciplined error that looked like eventual success from the outside. Or look at J.K. Rowling's stack of rejection letters, each one a polite funeral for a dream. She didn't fold and quit. She edited, rewrote, and returned with the same stubborn faith that the story deserved a reader. Rejection was not a verdict to her. It was an invitation to sharpen the craft. That's the hard secret. The world sends you failure to force refinement. Now, what most call bad luck is often feedback you refused to use. Failure asks you to pause, not to bow your head and agree with defeat, to pause like a surgeon pauses before the incision, deliberate, diagnostic, precise. In that pause, you take inventory. What exactly failed? Where did the assumption break? Which variable shifted? Colonel Harlan Sanders is a perfect example of trained stubbornness. At 65, he had been dumped by restaurants, doors slammed in his face, but he kept cooking, refining, adjusting the recipe and the pitch. He treated rejection like a test he had yet to pass. He failed enough that the filter for success became obvious. When someone finally said yes, it wasn't luck. It was persistence that had been educated by failure. But don't romanticize pain. There's a difference between productive failure and slow self-abuse. Productive failure is surgical, short, observed, corrected. Self-abuse is repetitive harm with no alteration. Dyson's thousands were not the same mistake repeated, and they were variations that changed one variable at a time. That's the method. Controlled experiments, not endless martyrdom. Failure also strips pretense. It shows you the parts of your plan that were borrowed from hope, not built on evidence. That's valuable cruelty. Pride makes you defend those parts. Discipline makes you cut them. The market will not flatter your ego. It will punish your illusions. Use failure as the scalpel that removes the weak tissue. Cut clean. Move again. There's another side, the social framing of failure. You must learn to narrate your losses in a way that keeps others aligned. Use the silence to turn the wound into a design, then move again, smarter and harder. This is how the broken become durable. This is how the discu find architecture. Failure will come. The only question is whether it will teach you or bury you. Choose the ledger, choose the work.
When you've been building in silence, the loud moment is the smallest part of the story. The thunder you see is the echo of a storm that has been gathering for months, even years. The reveal is cinematic because the build was surgical. That's not luck, that's deliberate strategy. Sarah Blakely started Spanx with $4,000 and a stubborn refusal to take no as the final answer. She pitched her prototype to manufacturers and was laughed at, then ignored, then handed a list of impossible requirements. She didn't tweet about it, she didn't post glossy progress shots, she sketched, she called, she sewed, she iterated. When the product finally reached store shelves and landed in the hands of influencers, it looked sudden. It wasn't. It was the product of quiet, stubborn, humiliating work no press release could capture. The world saw the sale. She had already climbed the mountain. Airbnb did the same thing. In the early days, they had an ugly site and a tiny user base. They tested copy, they optimized photos, they hustled down to conferences and asked for 2 minutes of attention. They didn't build an empire overnight. They built a repeatable playbook, then scaled it. When growth exploded, people called it a network effect. What they didn't see was the long list of small fixes and private experiments that created the effect. The reveal is loud because the preparation is quiet. The quiet reveal has 3 parts: concealment, refinement, and strike. Concealment isn't cowardice, it's strategy. Refinement is an obsession without method. It's a disciplined loop of test and correct. Strike is the final public act that closes the loop. Each part is necessary. Miss one and the architecture collapses. Concealment protects you from 2 enemies. First, it protects from external pressure, the critics, the copycats, the doubters who want to slow you down or pull you into a debate. Second, it protects from your own vanity. When you show too early, you trade feedback for applause and attention for patience. You begin to perform the attempt, not finish the craft. Concealment removes applause as a currency so you can spend your energy on things that compound. Strike is the art of timing and force. When you strike, it must look inevitable. That means no tentative launches, no half pledges. Strike is not about being loud for the sake of attention. It's about being decisive to the point that no countermeasure makes a difference. The reveal should be overwhelming in its clarity. It should feel like the answer to a question everyone suddenly remembers they were asking. That's the psychological shock of the quiet reveal. There's also a tactical law you must learn. The fewer people who know, the harder it is to stop you. Information leaks create interference. Competitors prepare, partners protest, friends advise. The fewer ears that hear the plan, the fewer hands that try to shape it. Silence preserves strategy. Silence preserves surprise. This is why stealth building matters. It allows you to iterate in private. It allows you to fail hard and fix quietly. It allows you to set the stage so that when you pull the curtain, the response is not, "How did you do that?" but "Why didn't we see this coming?" When you strike, do it with enough force that people don't have time to critique the method. Let the work be decisive. Decisive moves break the momentum of critics. They force attention to the facts, the product, the performance, the result. Results have their own arguments. Today, the world is noisy. Tomorrow, you will be loud. Between today and tomorrow, there is only one thing you must do. Keep working in private until the work itself demands to be seen. When it does, let the reveal be devastating in its clarity. Do not tell everyone about it.
Outbuild, then strike. When the curtain opens, the noise will be theirs and the triumph will be yours. Make them say overnight while you smile at your ledger.